Alright, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Garbage Sports Talk. I'm your host, Graham Wright. I'm excited to be back, as always. And today, we're going to talk about the MLB playoff picture for this year. Now, it's a bit messed up in the National League because it hasn't really been decided yet, but I didn't want to wait to post this video. So, here we go. We're going to talk about the wild card first. Now, this wild card is all over the place. Milwaukee just clinched a playoff spot today. They could still take the Central over from the Cubs, but we're not sure yet. So right now, there is Milwaukee versus St. Louis. There is Milwaukee versus Colorado. There is Chicago versus St. Louis. There is Chicago versus Colorado. Or there is Milwaukee versus LA for the wild card spots. And that's a lot of wild card spots. In the Central, Chicago has the lead right now, but it's a one-game lead. Actually, they're even now with Milwaukee. Play the winner of the wild card because they both have the best record in the NL. In the West, either LA or Colorado will win it. I think Colorado will be able to win it over LA as LA is slipping late as of late. In the East, Atlanta's got it locked up, so they'll play either Colorado or LA. And just a note, Milwaukee will have home field advantage wherever they play because they either have the first wild card spot or they will have the best record in the NL. Either or. Now, let's go to the AL. AL is a bit more, it's more decided now. The wild card, you have New York versus Oakland, which could be a very interesting matchup, especially in a one-game playoff when you have two slugging teams go up against each other with, I don't want to say the best pitching ever. New York will likely have the home field advantage. I'm not sure. New York was losing today and Oakland was winning today. So if that stays put, then New York will have a 1.5 game lead with 3 games left, which is definitely doable for Oakland to come back. In the East, the Blue Jays aren't doing anything. Boston, they just set a new franchise record for wins. They're at 107 now, so keep climbing there. They'll play the wild card winners. They have the best record in the major leagues. Central, Cleveland's got that locked up. But here's a fun fact for you here. New York and Oakland both have better records than Cleveland. And yet, they're both wild card teams. That just shows you how, I don't want to say weak, because I know Cleveland's a good team, but the Central isn't as competitive as the East or the West. Now, speaking of the West, Houston, they got West locked up, so it'll be Houston versus Cleveland in the ALDS. Houston with home field, obviously, as they just hit the century mark against the Blue Jays yesterday. And here we have my predictions for the playoff tree and how it's going to go. So I think that Colorado will take over the West lead from the Dodgers, and Milwaukee will play the Dodgers in the wild card. I think that Milwaukee will beat the Dodgers in the wild card. Sorry, LA, you're not going back to the World Series again this year. And Milwaukee will play Chicago in the ALDS. Colorado versus Atlanta. I think that Colorado will come out on top in the ALDS, and I think Milwaukee will beat Chicago on the other side of the ALDS. So it'll be Milwaukee versus Colorado in the NLCS. And in that, Milwaukee will defeat Colorado and go to the World Series. Now, on the AL, New York versus Oakland. This was tough because you have Oakland, who has the home run champion, Chris Davis, mini crush. Or you have New York, who has Judge, Stanton, Sanchez. They got so many sluggers. It's unbelievable with their payroll, and they're probably getting Harper next year. It's tough for teams to compete, even though Boston beat them by quite a big margin in the East this year. Once you're in the playoffs, it doesn't matter where you start; it's where you finish. But I think Oakland, with the team that they have and the sluggers that they have, and the park that New York has, it doesn't matter where they play, because in Oakland, it's not a home run hitting park, that's for sure, and New York definitely isn't used to playing there, but of course Oakland is because it's their home field. So they'll have the advantage there, or Oakland will play in a home run hitting park, which will also be to their advantage. So I think Oakland will take it over New York, and then move on to play Boston. On the other side of the ALDS, it'll be Cleveland versus Houston. Now, this is a clear-cut sweep of Cleveland, I think. I think Houston's going to sweep Cleveland for sure. They're going to move on to the ALCS. Boston will play Oakland in the other ALDS. They'll beat Oakland, unfortunately. I'd love to see Oakland go farther than the ALDS, but Boston's just too much of a powerhouse this year. And so in the ALCS, it'll be Boston versus Houston. I pick Houston to go past to the ALCS in 6. And in the World Series, it'll be Milwaukee versus Houston. And Houston will take it in 5, and they'll repeat as World Series champions. Now, I didn't go over games in the NL, so I'm going to do this now. Milwaukee versus LA, obviously, one playoff game. Milwaukee will win it in 1. Milwaukee will beat Chicago in 7. Colorado will beat Atlanta in 6. Milwaukee will beat Colorado in 6. And then Houston will beat Milwaukee in 5 to win. Those are my predictions. I think that it's going to be a very, very interesting playoff. That's for sure. With Milwaukee coming out of nowhere, like, I don't want to say they're bad last year, but with the additions of Kane, Yelich having an MVP season, there's no way he can't win the National League MVP with the season he's had. Braun, I wouldn't say he's... Braun's tough because he is still swinging it. He can still hit it out, but he's not the Braun we saw 4 or 5 years ago when they were back, or 7, I guess, when they were in the playoffs. But that was during his steroid scandal, so I'm not too sure. With Aguilar coming through and the pitching that they've had, I think that Milwaukee will go deep, and we'll see if you can get, go in the World Series. Colorado, Story's heating up. David Dahl's heating up. Arenado, stud, just like always. Their pitching, not so bad. Wade Davis having an okay year. Has like 41 saves, but his ERA is north of 450. So that's not good, especially when you play in the playoffs and games. Every game counts. Atlanta, it's good to see Atlanta back. It's awesome to see Atlanta back in the playoffs after all the stuff they've been through. It was tough to see them go through such a great organization. Tough to see them go through all that stuff, but they got their draft picks. They got Swanson. They got Freeman. They have Markakis. Markakis have an awesome year. Career year. Well, not a career year, but it's close to it. He's third in the league in NL, 182 hits. Well, he's second in the NL behind his teammate Freddie Freeman. He's third in the major leagues. I think that Atlanta will be okay, but my prediction is Colorado in 6. So for the NLCS, Milwaukee versus Colorado. Obviously, Milwaukee. Two teams that haven't really been too deep in the playoffs. The last ALDS appearance for Colorado was in 2009. And that was before Arenado was even there. So, and not just Arenado, but most of their key pieces. So it's hard to tell, who's going to be the real deciding factor. I know Lorenzo Cain, he won a World Series championship with the Royals in 2015. He's on the Brewers this year. So that'll help. Yelich, he never had any experience playing in Miami. They're never going to make the playoffs. Ever. Sorry, Derek Jeter. Padre. And, with Aguilar coming out of nowhere, I wouldn't say he's a rookie, but this is his first, actually good year. It's going to be interesting to see what Milwaukee does. Honestly, the NL is very, very cloudy for teams making it. Milwaukee, Colorado, and Atlanta, they don't really have a ton of playoff experience at all. Like I said, Colorado last ALDS appearance 2009. Milwaukee first playoff appearance since 2011. Atlanta, I'm not even sure when the last time they made the playoffs was. Too long ago. So the American League is a lot more clear cut than the National League. But I'm excited for this playoffs because there's a lot of new teams in it. With Oakland, it's been a while since they've been in the playoffs, so it's nice to see them making a return. The New York-Minnesota game last year was just an absolute riot to watch. It was an awesome game, so I'm really excited to see what these two teams can do. So that'll do it for today. For the MLB playoff picture, I'll be coming back in a couple days with a video about the NHL season starting to shape up and the preseason games that have already started and finished in the NHL. So thank you for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.